This is Bone Chillers to disturb your dreams. Dare to join us? Click subscribe, ring the bell. But remember, we cannot guarantee your safety from the nightmares that await. Prepare to be thrilled, chilled, and filled with a sense of dread you'll find nowhere else. Welcome to the darkness. We've been waiting.
You don't understand. The night was a shroud of darkness as I stumbled through the desolate forest, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. Every rustle of leaves and distant howl of wind sent shivers down my spine. I had lost my way, the trees a labyrinth that seemed to close in on me with each step. But then, just as despair began to take hold, I stumbled upon a clearing. Moonlight spilled into the open space, illuminating the eerie scene before me. A young woman with flowing blonde hair stood in the center, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and desperation. In her trembling arms, she held a creature unlike anything I had ever seen. Its skin shimmered a sickly shade of gray, reflecting the moonlight like liquid metal. Its reptilian form was both alien and beautiful, with eyes that bore into my soul, leaving me feeling exposed and vulnerable. The woman's lips moved, forming words that I couldn't hear over the thundering of my heart. I cautiously stepped closer, my curiosity mingling with trepidation. She looked at me with an expression that seemed to beg for help, for understanding. And then, as if sensing my confusion, her voice reached my ears. "Please, you have to help me," she pleaded, her voice quivering. "This creature, it's a guardian of an ancient portal. It's escaped, and if we don't capture it, unspeakable horrors will be unleashed upon our world." I stared at the creature in her arms, its eyes now fixed on me. There was something about those eyes that sent a chill down my spine, a feeling that they held secrets darker than the night itself. The woman's story was bizarre, fantastical even, and yet there was a sincerity in her eyes that I couldn't ignore. Without giving myself time to think, I nodded, my voice caught in my throat. She offered me a strained smile, her grip on the creature tightening as she stepped closer. "We need to find it before it's too late," she said, her voice a mixture of urgency and determination. "Will you help me?" I nodded again, my heart now racing for a different reason. As we ventured deeper into the forest, the trees seemed to twist and contort, their shapes shifting like living things. The air grew colder, and the sounds of the forest grew distant, replaced by an unsettling silence. My steps were heavy, laden with a sense of foreboding that I couldn't shake. The woman spoke as we walked, her words weaving a tale of ancient portals, otherworldly dimensions, and the balance that held our reality together. She spoke of sacrifices and guardians, of how she had been chosen to keep watch over this portal, to ensure that the creature never escaped. But as the night wore on, doubts began to gnaw at my mind like hungry rats. The woman's story, while captivating, began to unravel in the face of the evidence before me. The creature's eyes, once pleading, now seemed calculating, almost malevolent. And the more I listened, the more I realized that the balance she spoke of was not one of protection, but of manipulation and control. As the clearing gave way to a twisted thicket, my suspicions were confirmed. A web of lies had ensnared me, and the woman's intentions were far darker than I could have ever imagined. The creature wasn't a guardian, but a sinister entity that she had unleashed upon the world, a malevolent force that thrived on chaos and despair. Panic clawed at my chest as the truth settled in. I was trapped in her scheme, a pawn in a treacherous game of deception and survival. Every step I took was a step deeper into a nightmare, and the woman's once pleading eyes now held a sickening satisfaction. "We're almost there," she cooed, her voice dripping with malice. "Once the creature returns to the portal, its power will be mine to command. And you, dear companion, will be my first offering." The forest seemed to close in on me, its shadows twisting into grotesque shapes. I knew that I had to escape, to find a way to outwit this woman and the sinister entity she sought to control. My mind raced, grasping for any thread of hope. In the distance, a faint glimmer of moonlight illuminated something lying on the forest floor. It was a fragment of the creature's gray skin, torn away during its escape. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged for it, my fingers closing around the cold, metallic surface. The woman's triumphant grin faltered as I held the shard before me, its surface reflecting the moonlight like a mirror. With a voice that shook with determination, I recited words that I had stumbled upon in a book long forgotten, words that were said to hold power over creatures like the one before me. The creature screeched, a sound that was both otherworldly and agonizing. Its form convulsed, its eyes now filled with a mixture of fury and fear. And then, as if obeying the ancient words, it began to dissipate, its form disintegrating into the night air. The woman's scream of rage echoed through the forest as the last traces of the creature vanished. She lunged at me, her fingers curling into claws, but I held the shard before me, its reflective surface now glowing with a blinding light. The woman recoiled, shielding her eyes from the brilliance. When the light faded, I was alone in the forest once more, the twisted trees and eerie silence now bearing witness to my victory. But the memory of that night still lingers, a reminder that darkness can take on many forms, and that the line between guardian and malevolence is often thinner than we dare to believe. I was hunted. The woods had always beckoned me with their enigmatic allure. There was an undeniable pull, an insatiable curiosity that gnawed at the corners of my mind. Armed with my trusty camera, I finally succumbed to the temptation and ventured deep into their heart, determined to capture their secrets in shades of black and white. The day began with the sun casting long shadows through the towering trees, their leaves rustling with a whispered invitation. The air was cool and inviting as I ventured deeper, each step echoing in the silence. The crunch of leaves beneath my boots was the only sound, a soothing cadence that belied the lurking mysteries of the woods. As dusk fell, an eerie fog began to roll in, casting a veil of uncertainty over the once familiar landscape. It was as if the woods themselves were transforming, shedding their daytime identity for something more sinister. My camera clicked relentlessly, capturing the ethereal dance of mist weaving through the trees. Amidst the swirling fog, a humanoid figure emerged. His form was pale and grey, almost ghostly against the muted backdrop. His movements were jagged and animalistic, a primal dance of predation that sent shivers down my spine. My heart raced as I watched him, a silent witness to a dance of danger. I stumbled backward, my instincts screaming at me to flee. Panic knotted my stomach as I turned and ran, the creature's unsettling movements etched into my memory. The fog twisted what I could see, each tree becoming a potential hiding place for the ominous figure that now hunted me. My breath came in ragged gasps as I sprinted through the woods, the underbrush clawing at my skin as if the very forest itself conspired to hinder my escape. The creature's cries echoed in my ears, a haunting symphony of desperation and fear. I dared not look back, for fear that his grey form would be mere inches behind me. My mind was a chaotic swirl of thoughts, a cacophony of terror and confusion. How had I gone from being the observer to the observed? How had this malevolent entity become my pursuer? My camera swung against my chest, its weight a constant reminder of my chosen profession, a profession that had now led me into a waking nightmare. Desperation led me deeper into the woods, my rationality fraying at the edges. As the creature's inhuman cries drew closer, I stumbled upon an ancient tree, its gnarled branches forming a protective alcove. I pressed my back against the rough bark, clutching my camera to my chest as if it were a lifeline. The very act of capturing life had now thrust me into a game of survival. Time crawled by, the fog cocooning me in isolation. The creature's cries grew louder, his predatory dance a constant reminder that I was not alone. My fingers tightened around the camera's cold metal frame, a futile attempt to find solace in its familiarity. With the first rays of dawn, the creature's cries began to fade, melting into the background like a distant memory. The woods seemed to sigh in relief, the trees standing tall and sentinel once more. I emerged from my protective alcove, battered and traumatized by the ordeal, my camera's roll a testament to the horrors that lurked within the fog-shrouded woods. As I walked back through the woods, the sun now casting its warm embrace upon the earth, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the experience. The allure of the woods had turned from curiosity to caution, a reminder that some mysteries were best left undisturbed. I returned to civilization with my haunting photographs, each image telling a story of fear and survival. I shared my tale with anyone who would listen, a warning etched into my words. But the woods still called, and even as I recount this story now, I feel their enigmatic allure tugging at the corners of my mind. For in the depths of those woods, I learned that some mysteries are not meant to be captured through a lens, but rather left to the shadows where they belong, unseen and untamed. The Vanishing Game. The wind howled through the trees, creating an eerie symphony that sent shivers down my spine as I stood at the edge of the woods. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an otherworldly glow over the landscape. I had heard the whispers, the rumors that had spread through the small town like wildfire. Deep within these woods, an old, forgotten cabin stood as a testament to a chilling and horrifying ritual, the Vanishing Game. Legend had it that every year, on the same night, 2 zombies would gather at the cabin's doorstep to partake in this sinister game. It was said that they were cursed souls, trapped in a macabre contest for eternity. One would be the seeker, the other the hider, and they would use their decaying instincts to find each other. The catch was that every time one of them was found, they would vanish forever, leaving behind nothing but a trail of entrails and bone fragments. My heart raced as I stood before the cabin, the moonlight casting strange shadows that danced on its weathered walls. The wooden door hung slightly ajar, as if beckoning me to enter and witness the horror that lay within. I knew it was foolish to entertain the stories, to believe that such a twisted game could exist, but the chilling atmosphere of the woods had a way of making even the most rational doubts seem like fleeting thoughts. With a deep breath, I stepped over the threshold and into the cabin. The air inside was heavy, laden with the scent of decay and the dampness of years gone by. Moonlight filtered through the broken windows, casting an eerie glow that revealed the cabin's decrepit state. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet, their protests echoing through the silence. As I moved further into the cabin, I found myself in a small, dimly lit room. The walls were adorned with faded wallpaper that seemed to whisper secrets of the past. In the center of the room, a dusty table held a worn deck of playing cards and an old, tattered journal. I picked up the journal and began to read the spidery handwriting that filled its pages. The Vanishing Game, the words began. The journal detailed the origins of the game, a twisted tale of forbidden magic and a cursed pact. It spoke of the 2 zombies, once lovers in life, who had become trapped in this gruesome contest as punishment for their transgressions. The seeker and the hider, bound by an unbreakable bond, their agony fueling the dark magic that perpetuated their eternal game. My heart raced as I read on, my mind struggling to comprehend the horrors that had unfolded within these walls. The journal spoke of their haunting whispers, their chilling laughter that would fill the cabin as they played their twisted game. It described how the forest had become a graveyard of their grisly contest, the trails of entrails and bones leading to the cabin's doorstep, a grim reminder of their ceaseless pursuit. Suddenly, a sound shattered the silence, a low, guttural growl that echoed from somewhere deep within the cabin. My pulse quickened, and I turned to face the doorway, my eyes widening as I saw them. 2 figures, their bodies twisted and decayed, stood before me. The zombies. Their eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as they stared at me, their mouths opening in silent laughter that sent a chill down my spine. One of them extended a skeletal hand, beckoning me to join their game. Panic surged within me, but I was frozen, unable to tear my gaze away from their haunting forms. With a sudden burst of movement, they lunged toward me, their decaying hands reaching out. Instinct kicked in, and I stumbled backward, crashing into the table. The playing cards scattered, their images distorted by age and decay. The journal fell from my grasp, its pages fluttering like the wings of a trapped bird. I turned and sprinted for the door, my heart pounding in my chest. The woods outside were a blur as I ran, the moonlight guiding my way. I didn't dare look back, fearing what I might see. But as I reached the edge of the woods, a bone-chilling wail echoed behind me, a mournful sound that seemed to pierce the very fabric of reality. I stumbled out of the woods and into the clearing, gasping for breath as I collapsed to the ground. The cabin stood behind me, a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. I knew now that the legends were true, that the Vanishing Game was not just a tale to scare the townsfolk, but a horrifying reality that played out year after year in that forsaken place. As the years passed, the forest became a graveyard of their grisly contest. The trails of entrails and bone fragments served as a chilling testament to the twisted fate that had befallen those cursed souls. The cabin remained at the center, a haunting reminder of the eternal game that played out within its walls. I never spoke of what I had witnessed that night, knowing that others would dismiss it as a mere fabrication. But the memory of those haunting figures, the chilling laughter, and the bone-chilling well would forever be etched into my mind, a reminder that some horrors are all too real, lurking in the shadows of forgotten places, waiting for those foolish enough to stumble upon them. Rooted fear. The dense canopy of trees overhead cast eerie shadows that danced along the forest floor as my sister, Eliza, and I cautiously ventured deeper into the heart of the isolated woods. The trees seemed to whisper secrets, and the rustling leaves echoed with an unsettling melody. We were on an adventure, two sisters seeking the thrill of the unknown, but little did we know that our curiosity would lead us to a fate far darker than we could have ever imagined. The forest was still, save for the faint sounds of our footsteps on the moss-covered ground. The air was thick with an earthy aroma, and a sense of foreboding settled in the pit of my stomach. We had heard rumors of an abandoned village hidden deep within the woods, a place forgotten by time, and our curiosity had gotten the better of us. As we walked, the trees seemed to grow closer together, forming an impenetrable barrier that blocked out the sunlight. The path ahead began to narrow, and I exchanged a nervous glance with Eliza. Still, we pressed on, our determination overshadowing our growing unease. After what felt like hours, we stumbled upon the village, or what was left of it. The once thriving settlement was now a haunting tableau of decay. Buildings lay in ruins, overtaken by creeping vines and thorny bushes. It was as though the very land itself had risen up to claim the village, consuming it in a web of living greenery. A shiver ran down my spine as I noticed that even the cobblestone streets were no longer visible beneath the tangle of plants. As we ventured further, the air grew colder, and a chilling wind whispered through the leaves. We were not alone. Eyes hidden within the foliage watched us, and the sensation of being hunted settled in. Eliza and I exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that this village held secrets far darker than mere abandonment. The plants, the very essence of life, were alive here in ways we could never have imagined. We hesitated, unsure if we should flee or uncover the truth hidden within these overgrown walls. Cautiously, we stepped into what appeared to be the village square. In its center stood an ancient well, its stone walls almost invisible beneath a mass of thorns and vines. Something glinted within the well, catching the faint light that filtered through the dense canopy. Drawn by curiosity, we approached cautiously, peering into the well, our breath caught in our throats. It was a mural, a vivid depiction of the villagers practicing a dark form of botanical magic. They were entwined with the plants, their bodies covered in vines, leaves, and blossoms. They seemed almost euphoric, their eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. A voice, soft as a whisper, seemed to echo in the wind, carrying the words of the mural to our ears. The villagers had sought to become one with the forest, to transcend mortality through a forbidden bond with the plants. But as their connection grew stronger, so did the darkness within them. They needed sacrifices to maintain their existence, to appease the very vegetation they had bound themselves to. As the realization settled upon us, a sinister movement caught our attention from the corner of our eyes. The plants, once passive, were now writhing with a life of their own. Vines slithered along the ground, reaching out like fingers hungry for contact. We stumbled back, our hearts racing, as the truth became inescapable. The villagers had left behind more than just a ghostly memory. The village had woven itself into the very fabric of the forest, and the plants were not only alive, but malevolent. Their hunger for sacrifice had not been sated, and we were their next targets. Panic surged within me as the ground trembled beneath our feet, the vines snaking closer, their thorns glistening with a deadly promise. Eliza and I shared a silent understanding, our bond as sisters giving us strength even in the face of unspeakable terror. We had to find a way out, a way to break the curse that bound this place. The mural had hinted at a way to harness the power of the plants, but the words were cryptic, shrouded in the very darkness we sought to escape. With a desperate determination, we retraced our steps, piecing together the fragmented clues the mural had given us. The ritual required a willing heart, a connection to the forest that transcended fear. We had to become a part of the forest, not through darkness, but through light. Gathering every ounce of courage, Eliza and I faced the advancing vines. As they reached out, we extended our hands, our hearts filled with an overwhelming love for the world around us. The plants hesitated, sensing a harmony that was foreign to their malevolent nature. With a surge of hope, we whispered the words of the ritual, a plea for the forest to embrace us in a way that would break the curse. For a heart-stopping moment, time seemed to stand still. The forest held its breath, and the very air trembled with anticipation. And then, the vines retreated, the thorns retracted, and a soft, warm light enveloped us. We could feel the forest's ancient magic responding to our plea, a counterforce to the darkness that had consumed the villagers. As the forest embraced us, the ground beneath our feet pulsed with a gentle rhythm. The village around us began to fade, its malevolent presence dissipating like morning mist. The curse was broken, the plants returning to their natural state, no longer bound by the villagers' twisted magic. We emerged from the woods, changed in ways both profound and subtle. The experience had left its mark, a deep respect for the power that nature held and the knowledge that darkness could be overcome by the light within us. The forest remained, its secrets hidden once more, but we carried its lessons with us, a reminder that even in the face of rooted fear, love and courage could prevail. Curse of the Hollow Grove. The sun was fading behind the horizon, casting long shadows that stretched like spectral fingers across the forest floor. I stood at the edge of the Hollow Grove, a desolate place whispered about in hushed tones among the townsfolk. They warned of the curse that had lingered there for centuries, a malevolent force that twisted the very heart of the woods into something unnatural and sinister. In the fading light, I could barely make out the gnarled trees that seemed to reach out with twisted limbs, as if eager to ensnare anyone who dared to venture into their domain. Yet, it wasn't the twisted trees that held my gaze, it was the stone statue that stood at the heart of the grove. The statue depicted a woman, her robed form contorted into a haunting pose. Her face was a skull-like visage, hollow eyes staring out into the abyss. They said the statue was the focal point of the curse, a cursed monument that held the key to the grove's torment. A shiver ran down my spine as I stepped over the threshold into the Hollow Grove. The air was thick with an otherworldly chill that seemed to seep into my very bones. Every rustle of leaves, every whisper of the wind, sent shivers through me. My steps were cautious, my heart hammering in my chest as I moved closer to the statue. It was as if the very forest itself was watching, waiting. As I drew nearer to the statue, the shadows seemed to grow darker, more oppressive. The statue's hollow eyes bore into me, a weighty gaze that seemed to pierce through my soul. A voice whispered in my mind, urging me to turn back, to flee from this accursed place. But a mixture of fascination and dread held me in place. I reached out a trembling hand and touched the rough stone surface of the statue. It was icy to the touch, sending a shock of coldness through my fingertips. And then, I heard it, a soft, mournful wail that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the forest. The wind carried the sound, twisting it into a haunting melody that seemed to speak of suffering and despair. I pulled my hand back, my heart racing. The wail echoed in my ears, and the forest around me seemed to come alive with movement. Shadows danced on the edge of my vision, and I could swear I saw fleeting glimpses of figures darting among the trees. My breath hitched as the statue's emaciated skull face seemed to glow faintly, its eyes locking onto mine. With a heart full of trepidation, I turned away from the statue and ventured deeper into the Hollow Grove. The trees seemed to close in around me, their branches twisted and contorted like the limbs of tortured souls. The air grew colder, and I could hear faint whispers, unintelligible words that seemed to come from all directions at once. As I stumbled through the darkened woods, I felt a growing sense of unease, a feeling that I was being watched by unseen eyes. I glanced over my shoulder, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw the statue's hollow eyes following me, its skull face contorted into a malevolent grin. I quickened my pace, my footsteps echoing loudly in the oppressive silence. Hours seemed to pass as I wandered deeper into the grove, the forest's twisted paths leading me in circles. Panic clawed at the edges of my mind as I realized that I was lost, trapped within this cursed labyrinth. And then, just as despair threatened to consume me, I saw it, the faint glow of the statue's eyes through the dense foliage. With renewed determination, I pushed forward, my heart pounding in my chest. The forest seemed to resist my every step, as if the very trees were conspiring to keep me from reaching the statue. But I pressed on, driven by a desperate need to unravel the mystery of the curse that held this place in its grip. Finally, I stood before the statue once more, its skull face illuminated by an eerie light that seemed to emanate from within. I stared into those hollow eyes, and suddenly, memories flooded my mind, memories of a time long past, when this grove was a place of ritual and sacrifice. The curse had been born of bloodshed and dark magic, a desperate attempt to harness power beyond mortal comprehension. As the memories unfurled, the statue's skull face seemed to shift, its malevolent grin transforming into a look of sorrow and longing. And then, in a voice that echoed through my mind, I heard her, the woman trapped within the stone, her voice filled with pain and regret. "You are the key," she whispered. "Break the curse, release me." With newfound determination, I delved deeper into the grove's history, uncovering forgotten tales of ancient rituals and forbidden magic. Armed with the knowledge of the curse's origins, I set about undoing the dark magic that had ensnared the forest for centuries. It was a perilous task, fraught with danger and uncertainty, but I refused to be defeated by the malevolent force that had plagued the hollow grove for far too long. Days turned into nights, and with each incantation, each ritual, the forest seemed to fight back harder, as if the curse itself was fighting to maintain its grip. But I persisted, driven by the memory of the woman's sorrowful eyes and the haunting wail that had echoed through the grove. And then, one fateful night, as I stood before the statue, the air grew still, and a profound silence descended upon the forest. The curse's power waned, and I felt a surge of energy pass through me, as if the very woods were rejoicing. The statue's stone began to crack and crumble, and with a final burst of magic, the curse was shattered. In the midst of the falling debris, a figure emerged, a woman, her form no longer trapped within the stone. Her eyes, once hollow and lifeless, were now filled with gratitude and relief. And as the first light of dawn pierced the canopy, the forest around us seemed to come alive with vibrant colors and renewed life. With a smile, the woman stepped forward, her hand reaching out to touch my cheek. And then, with a soft whisper, she was gone, the last remnants of the curse fading into the wind. The hollow grove, once a place of darkness and despair, was transformed into a place of beauty and light. As I stood among the rejuvenated trees, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder at the power of redemption and the strength of the human spirit. The curse had been broken, the woman's soul finally set free, and I had played a part in unraveling the centuries-old mystery. And so, the hollow grove was no longer a place of fear and dread, but a testament to the enduring nature of hope and the resilience of the human heart. As I walked away from the grove, the memory of the woman's haunting eyes remained with me, a reminder that even in the darkest of places, there is always a glimmer of light waiting to be found.
Thank you for watching, and remember, the darkness awaits. Until our paths cross again, stay fearful and stay subscribed.